Welcome to my March reading wrap-up. Let's see how many books I read in March. I actually have not even calculated it yet. Should have probably done that before I started this video. So in the month of March, I read 11 books. Some of them I don't necessarily know the correct genre to put them in, so I don't really have those kind of stats for you, but I did read a good amount between each genre. I read some romances, fantasies, literary fiction, mystery. I have a good range of books that I've read in the month of March. I just don't know what genre they go into, which you guys will see once I start talking about them. But out of the 7 books on my TBR for March, I ended up reading 5 of them. You'll see in this video the ones that I did read, but the ones that I didn't read were Red Rising and The Unmaking of June Farrow, which I really wanted to get to them, but I want to read them when I'm in the mood for them, especially those two, because I feel like I have really high hopes for them and I feel like I'm really going to enjoy them. So I didn't want to force myself to read them that month, and I feel like if I just had a few more days in March, I would have been able to get to them. But we're about to start off the month pretty strong, which actually this book took up majority of the beginning of this month. I think this took me 10 days around to read because I had to take so many breaks. I had to come back down to earth and center myself before continuing this book. So this is A Little Life. If you did not watch me reading sad books, I read this in there spoiler free, but I gave a pretty in-depth review in that video, so I'm not going to go too in-depth in this video about my feelings and thoughts and everything. But if you have not heard of this book, not seen this book, it is an extremely heavy contemporary fiction novel that follows 4 main characters, but really it's really 1, maybe 2 main characters. But we're following these 4 boys who met, I think, in college time and the span of their lives, literally from when they met and as them becoming friends. And also you get like the history of them prior to them being friends, but then also the span of their lives. Like, you're spending a lot of time with these characters and you're learning a lot about them, and it goes into like extreme detail about each character and what they came from, what they're about. But especially our one main character, Jude, like, he is like the forefront of the story really, and you get to see each of the other friends and kind of what they give to this friendship and what role they all play. So I didn't end up rating this book because, again, if you watched my review in my other video, I was just really conflicted and I felt really like contradicting in my thoughts to really give it a rating. And I also said so much about it, but just to sum up my feelings, I think this book is, and I know a lot of people say this, it's a book that is like masterpiece, the way it's written, the way it makes you feel. It, like, I've never felt the way I did with a book in my life. I've never had a book put me in like a bad mental place. Like, if you want to read this book, don't take it from this video. Like, I don't leave this video to read this, but if you are interested, intrigued, make sure you're in like a healthier or just a better mindset mentally and in a better mental place when reading this. Like, don't go into this if you're going through a hard time or in a bad mental space, because this book really took a toll on mine personally. Just like seeing our main character, there's a lot of trauma on every page in here, and I was nervous going into this because I heard it's like trauma dumping on every page, and it is, like, there is trauma on every page and it does go into detail, but I was nervous because I thought it was just like throwing in trauma for no reason. But after reading it and consuming this book, the trauma makes so much sense, and it like really shows what people go through. And even though this book is fictional and what you're reading is so incredibly hard to read and so difficult to even like fathom, and it's not like fake things that happened, you know what I mean? Like, definitely look up trigger warnings. I looked them up before reading this, and it's like every trigger warning you can probably think of are in this book. Like, it is definitely told in detail, but again, I think it's like something that I don't have like a knowledge or a history or like anything with that I'm reading about in this book that is a reality for some people, and it's heartbreaking and it's really hard to read. And what was so interesting is she doesn't tell you whose point of view you're in, but the first part of this book, which this book is split up into parts, the first part you're learning about each of these 4 guys and like the main characters and what they're about and everything. So when she doesn't tell you whose point of view you're in throughout the rest of it, I thought it was just done so beautifully, because it's like as soon as that starts, like, you know whose point of view you're in because you know them so well. Like, I know these characters so well now that I'm going to remember them for the rest of my life. Like, I don't think a day has passed since reading this that I haven't thought about our main character especially. But again, I know it's contradicting to say this book is like beautifully written and a masterpiece and really eye-opening and stuff, but then to say don't read it like that, it's hard because now you're probably really curious of what's in here and you want to know and you want to experience it too. But do it on your own time and decide when the time is right for you. It is very heavy. Like, please don't go into this thinking you are better than this book. Like, it is a lot. So that was a crazy way to start off my March with. Then I went into the complete opposite of what A Little Life is, and I picked up Swift and Salad by Lila Sage. This is her new release that just came out. I think it came out in March. The first book in this interconnected cowboy standalone series is done and dusted. I really enjoyed that one. They're really just short and sweet cowboy romances. If you're in like a, I don't know if you're ever going to be in a cowboy mood. If you've never read a cowboy romance, I highly recommend. Something about them, the small town, the family dynamic, I don't know what it is. I personally eat it up and I didn't think it was for me. This one follows Wes and Ada. Wes is the brother to our main character from the first book, and Ada is this city girl who comes to this small town. She's an interior designer and she's hired by Wes to help interior design and decorate this guest house. That's kind of like his job on the farm and on the ranch. This one I ended up giving a 3.5 star. I enjoyed this one. I really love Lila Sage's writing. It's so fast paced. This is a book if you're in a slump or you just want a book to binge and just sit and like read in a day. This is perfect for that. It's like no brain power, really easy read, but also very entertaining. That's why I love her writing so much. You can kind of connect to the characters, and the family dynamic as well is like my favorite. I love that part so much. But I feel like the way that they met and like their attraction to each other was more of like a physical level, and I feel like I really like when it gets like an emotional level between two characters before we get to that point. So that's the only part that I didn't absolutely love. But other than that, it was short, it was sweet, it was to the point of a cowboy romance, and I cannot wait for the next one. The next one I feel like is going to be my favorite. It's with one of the other brothers that I have been waiting for, and I'm really excited. Also, this series was just picked up, I think, I don't know by who, but to become movie series, TV series, I'm not too sure, but that's just like so amazing because the first novel I think came out last year, and I am so excited to see some cowboys on my screen. I then read The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I actually listened to probably like 60% of this and then I read the other 40%. This is about, okay, wait, why do I kind of forget? Hold on. This is about our main character who's a really famous actress, and she is like A-list celebrity actress. So she invites a few of her friends and family to Greece, her little island on Greece, to spend, I think it's like a weekend there, not like too much time, and then someone ends up dying. So that goes into the tabloids, into the news. It's like a huge thing. But what I really liked about this is the way it was told. The way our main character, who is one of the people that go to the island and one of her friends, he tells it to you like as if he's like sitting down at like a bar with you, like sharing a secret story. Like he kind of steps out of the story and he's like, you're gonna need a drink for this, like sit down, just listen to the story. He'll be telling you like events that are happening, and then he'll step out, he'll be like, wait, I'm going too far, let me backtrack, and then he'll tell you something, he's like, wait, let me go back to this point. And it's really interesting, the point of view and like the perspective that this is told, and I think that's my favorite part about this. I ended up giving it a 3 star. I feel like it's definitely different from other mystery or thrillers that I've read before. I think it was not too like suspenseful or thrilling or anything. Like I wasn't on the edge of my seat to find out what was happening, but I had a good time while I was reading it, and I would recommend this honestly in like the summertime because majority of this takes place on an island in Greece. So I would recommend this one if you're wanting to read or listen to a like fast-paced mystery thriller. Like I really like his books, I enjoy his books, but this one's not my favorite by him, but I had a good time listening and reading it. Just not my favorite mystery thriller plotline. Also the ending I feel like didn't really like fully get me. Like it was on the edge of my seat is what I'm trying to say, but it was, I had a good time reading it. Then I read One Day by David Nichols. Now I honestly just picked this up because I saw that the show came out and then I was told that there's also a movie, so I was like, okay, if there's a book that's really popular and has been read by so many people, has so many reviews and ratings on Goodreads, so I wanted to read this first, see kind of like what the storyline was about before going into the show especially. So if you don't know what One Day is about, you have Dexter and Emma who meet on graduation day and they spend the next day, which is July 15th, I believe, together. And then it just shows them every July 15th for like really a lot of years to come. So they spend that one day together and then it flash forward to the next year, another July 15th, where they are at in their life at that point. And it doesn't matter if they're together with each other or they're with other people or if they're at other jobs or anything. Like it's just like about them two that year. It's not really like their relationship together that year. It's more of just like them as two people, what they're up to that year. And it doesn't really tell you like what happened between the last July 15th and the one that we're at now. It kind of just like gets right to it, like this is what's happening, like Emma's doing this, Dexter's doing this, and they stay connected through all of these years, and you just see like these kind of like slices of life that one day every year. It's very interesting. I just did not like the writing style of this. I actually almost DNF'd it. I think I gave this one 2.75 stars. I just could not, like I didn't like, we'll get into the show after I talk about the book, but Dexter from the show, probably one of my favorite characters I've ever watched on a show. Dexter in this, couldn't stand him. I could not stand him in the book. I loved Emma. I really enjoyed her character. I feel like she had more depth to her. And I feel like that was like kind of like the point of it. Like Dexter and Emma are complete opposites. I've heard people compare this to normal people, which I can honestly really see, but Emma kind of has her life planned out. She knows what she wants. She's kind of working to get there, but like at a slowish pace. And then Dexter just like doesn't want to grow up. He's partying, he's drinking alcohol, he's with a bunch of different girls and stuff. Like they are very opposites, but their dynamic together is really interesting, and I just like the writing style of this was kind of mundane and boring, and I couldn't feel their chemistry or connection like at all in this book. I really just did not feel anything about the book. Needless to say, I ended up finishing this, had no reaction, didn't feel anything, had to watch the show. I couldn't not watch the show after seeing so many reactions and so many TikToks and everything. One, let me just say, right from the first episode, casting, impeccable. The actors that they chose for Dexter and Emma were like, literally they couldn't have casted it more perfectly. The chemistry between these two from the first episode was like so good. I was like, oh, this is good. This is gonna be good. And what I loved so much is how I didn't really enjoy this book, but they took direct quotes, direct scenes, like exactly from the book. So it was like this book kind of came to life, and I feel like the actors did this book so much justice, like bringing those quotes that like in my head while reading it, I couldn't really picture it and like picture what was happening, but in the show, I was like, oh, like that makes sense. Like now I can feel it. After reading the book, I was like, I know what happens and everything, and I know how everything ends, and that ending had me. Like when I get TikTok edits of it right now, like I'm still like tearing up over it. Like it is so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend the show. I still have to watch the movie, which I heard is also really good, and what's her name is in it? Anne Hathaway is in the movie, so I need to watch that still. But the show, if you don't want to read the book, if you're not into the book, highly recommend still watching the show. It is so good that by the end of it, I kid you not, I was like, my face was just wet with tears. Like I was like hyperventilating, crying. Like it was like they did it so justice. Like it was done so well. Casting of everyone else, like the scenes and the quotes and everything. Like I'll put a picture here, a really embarrassing picture. Like I was not doing well. I was like, but so good. So good. I'm so happy I ended up watching the show. And also I feel like I didn't need to read this book to watch the show, but I kind of appreciated it more, again, seeing things come from the book into the show. But very interesting how you can read a book and then watch the show, and like it could be vice versa. You don't like the show but you like the book. Very interesting because they took direct things from the book. Then on my Kindle I read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is a fantasy novel. I think the second one comes out. I actually don't know when the second one comes out, but I know it's gonna be a series, and I tried to read this I think in February. I soft DNF'd it. Well, I didn't know if it was gonna be a soft DNF. I felt like I wanted to come back to it. It just wasn't the right time for the book. I saw it on TikTok so many times, people like really hyping it up and saying it was really, really good, like gonna be one of the new really popular fantasy books and everything, saying you really need to read it. So I gave it a second chance for a video in March, and I really ended up enjoying it the second time around. What's funny about this one is I kind of like don't really remember too much of what happens in the book. Like I really enjoyed my time reading it, especially the second time, but why do I like not like fully remember everything? Bits and pieces are coming back to me, but it basically takes place in this fantasy world where there are these 4 creators, and or maybe there's 5. There's these creators. You can either hear their singing and songs in their heads, and if you don't hear them, and you're a null. And the null are kind of less than the people that can like hear the songs and stuff. So you have like 2 different parts of the society and parts of the world. Our main character, Rave, she can hear songs, but she poses as a null because she works for this rebel group. But then the king sends out this guy to take down people from the rebel group, and she is now captured, and she's taken, and she's caught, basically. And that's kind of where the story starts, and it's very interesting getting into it. It's very entertaining. There's also a glossary in the beginning of this book, which I said in my video reading this, that really try to pay attention to the glossary, or if you're confused about any new words that is brought up throughout the book, really kind of reference the glossary because it really helps. I kind of skimmed over it the first time I read it. I was kind of confused going into it, but the second time around I used the glossary, and I feel like this is like maybe common sense, but I didn't use it the first time around. I thought I was gonna understand it, but like the glossary really helps. The first like 40% of the book is like, it feels like a whole different book than the second 60% of it, but it's still entertaining, it's still fun, and then it kind of like flips a little bit and you get like a whole different almost storyline, but you need that beginning 40% to like set up for the rest of it. And it was done really well. The first time I read it, again, I just didn't connect with it, but the second time I had a really fun time reading it. I think it's such an interesting storyline. I really enjoyed, there's like a romance part of it, and I felt like that was really different than a lot of fantasy romances that you get. It was very fun to read, and I cannot wait for the next one. I really enjoyed the ending of it and everything. I would highly recommend. I gave this book 4 stars, and I had a really fun time reading this, and I'm really happy my TikTok put this on my feed as much as it did. So then I picked up The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I actually randomly picked this up, not for a video or anything. I kind of just like wanted to read it. It was like definitely a mood read choice, and I'm really happy that I decided to pick it up when I did, when I was in the mood for it, because as soon as I picked this book up, I couldn't put it down. Like I read this in less than 24 hours. It's a heavier book. If you don't know what this book is about, it's basically about this girl who, I think it's it's before her freshman year, or is it her freshman year of high school, something happens to her that is very traumatizing. I mean, it's on the back of the book. That's not a spoiler, right? Eden is our main character. She is raped by her brother's best friend, and it's someone that she knows. It's horrible and traumatizing, and it really just tells the story from her point of view, freshman year, sophomore, like all 4 years of high school, and kind of how she deals with it and how she copes with it. And I feel like this is kind of how I felt about A Little Life, but not to the same extent as that. But being in the point of view of someone who has gone through something like this, like, you don't know how it affects people. It just brings so much like insight to why people are reacting the way they do, and especially like such traumatic, horrible things happening. Like reading that in this point of view and seeing the way that she acted afterwards, and seeing how it affected everyone around her, how it affected her all through these like 4 years. Like it didn't just like affect her at that point. Like we have all of these years to go through with her, and the writing style of this is so easy to grasp and understand and read along with. Like it was written, I feel like, really well for what it is about. And what I wrote down while I was reading this, I had like a few thoughts that I didn't want to forget to say. But what happens in this book, it doesn't affect everyone who goes through it the exact same way. Like everyone reacts to something so traumatizing so differently, and it truly just shows like in this book like how it impacts someone, and also for how long it impacts someone. Like this is not something you live with for a day. Like now this is like the rest of your life, really. It reminded me of another book that I read that I don't want to say because I feel like that's a huge spoiler, but like being in her point of view and seeing something so incredibly traumatic happen to her and how it affected her and how she acted afterwards, it just helps to make more sense again about how it affects people, why they act the way they do after. And like it really just shows so much, and I gave this 4 stars because I really just appreciated this book, and I really want to read the second one. I think it came out last year. I'm really interested to see kind of how the end of this story like goes into that one, how it kind of concludes, because I think it's only going to be a duology, but I did enjoy reading this one. Then I read another book on my Kindle in the same video as When the Moon Hatched, and that is called The Gale. So this one was another book that came on my TikTok page and came across my page so many times, but from the author specifically. And this is a dystopian fantasy, which is really interesting. I really enjoy dystopian books. I feel like they're very easy to understand and read, but they're very entertaining, kind of eerie sometimes. But this is set 300 years in the future, and I think something happened where radiation, something split the world in two. Now there's humans with like a king, and our main character is the princess, and she is their only daughter. So when the heir turns 18, they announce that they're the heir. Like no one knows that she's the princess. It's fully anonymous until she turns 18. She announces that she's gonna be the heir, and then once she turns 18, after doing a year of like celebrating and stuff, she becomes now the queen. Usually it's like a king and like a son, but he didn't have a son, so it's her that's going to be the queen. And then you have the Gale, which is the other side of this world, and they have kind of powers from the radiation that happened years ago, and complete enemies. No, you don't cross the wall to the Gale if you're human, all of that. But on the night of her 18th birthday, she decides to go out and celebrate that. She's gonna now show off that she's the heir and everything, and she gets taken by the Gale. Her world is like opening up to like what the Gale's about, meeting the Gale and everything like that, and they don't know that she is gonna be the queen. Like she is the princess, she's the heir, like they have no idea. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I feel like it was very, very politics heavy. Like the divide between the Gale and the humans is very much forefront in the book. There was a romance in here that took a while to get into, and I was really eating it up once it was like kind of like giving a little bit some crumbs of it, and then it kind of went like 0 to 100, and then it was like all of a sudden like a bigger romance. So I wish that was like a little bit more of a slow burn, but other than that, I had a really fun time reading it. I think it was very interesting. Again, very fun. I really like dystopian books, and like the dystopian mixed with the fantasy and the magic and the powers and stuff was really fun. So I would recommend this if you want to get into dystopian fantasy, or you want to try one out, or if you do like that genre. It was really fun. I'm sitting here editing this video, and I'm like, why do I feel like I'm missing a book? I definitely read 11, and I feel like I was missing a book, and that's because I didn't talk about Butcher and Blackbird, which we read as our book club book for the month of March. Like that was our book club book, and I didn't talk about it. Literally totally forgot about it, and I don't know how, because I did thoroughly enjoy reading it. If you don't know what Butcher and Blackbird is about, it's basically about these 2 serial killers. It's a rom-com serial killer romance, which I read the Mindfuck series I think a couple years ago at this point, and it's 5 novellas into 1 book, but it's about a serial killer and an FBI agent or a profiler in the FBI falling in love, and he's like on her case, this whole thing. And I really enjoyed that. I liked the serial killer and the romance like mixture, but this one was a little bit different. It was less serious and more of like the rom-com-y part of a rom-com. Like the comedic effect was definitely there. I gave this one 4 stars. It was so fast-paced. It's a book if you're in a slump and you want something a little bit different than your normal rom-coms. I would say to check the trigger warnings, which it does get a little bit graphic, a little bit detailed, because they are serial killers. Like, there are going to be some murders going on, but our main character Rowan is so down bad for our other main character Sloane. Like, he right off the bat is like obsessed with her, and you can like feel it. It's a dual point of view. I was obsessed with their like chemistry and like tension, but then also the two of them once a year get together to play a game and see who can get to their victim first. But they're not just killing random people, they're killing people that are like doing bad things. Like, I guess there's like some good reasoning to why they are serial killers. I feel like the author did such a great job mixing the serial killer and the serious scenes, but then also mixing in the rom-com and, like I said, the comedic effect between the two characters. The banter was so good. I was obsessed with the two of them together, and then in these scenes, like, you have this serious scene going on and they're like making jokes, they're cracking jokes. Like, it was just really lighthearted in moments where it should be serious, but I think that's what the author, I guess, was trying to do, and it really, like, it hit. I think it was so good. This also is going to be an interconnected standalone series, I believe. The next one is about Rowan, our male main character's brother, and I'm so excited for it. Again, if you want a fast-paced book that you can kind of just binge and also a little bit different than your normal rom-coms, you want something good chemistry, spicy scenes, all that, totally the book for you. I had such a good time reading it. I had so much fun. I was giggling when I probably like why was I so giddy over serial killers? Like, I don't know, but it did what it had to do, and I can't believe I forgot to talk about it because I did have a great time reading it. So those are my thoughts. Now back into the other books that I read this month. Or last month. Then I read First Line Wins by Ashley Elston. I actually think I listened to majority of this book. I tried to read it and I just couldn't get into it, which is very interesting because I feel like this book has been so popular recently. Like, I feel like a lot of people have been reading it and really enjoying this. It's basically about this woman named Evie Porter, and she is marrying into this wealthy, kind of well-known family in the town that they live in. I think it's like Louisiana, it's in the South. She's getting to know the husband's friends, and like they're a very close-knit group, and the friends are kind of trying to figure out like who Evie Porter is, like where'd she come from, and all this stuff, and then you find out that Evie Porter doesn't exist. I gave this book 3.75 stars. I feel like listening to it, I was like listening to like a crime podcast or like an undercut, like it was very entertaining to listen to, but reading it was kind of hard for me. I feel like it kind of slowed down and it wasn't what I expected. Like, I thought it was going to be like someone is impersonating her. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just like storyline was not what I expected and not what I thought it was going to be, and I think that kind of bummed me out. And what it was, I didn't really love, like following along the middle parts. Like, you get our main character Evie Porter's past and like how she got to where she is right now, and those past, like, they just really didn't entertain me. Like, I didn't really care honestly about that. Like, I wasn't entertained with that. But the present, like, I wish it just stayed in like that small Louisiana friend group and like gossip and like all, like I liked that setting and like the vibe that was going on there. But like as it continued and like progressed, it was kind of slowing down for me. I will say I gave it a 3.75 and not a 3 because I really liked the ending of it. I feel like the ending really got me. It's not what I expected. It was like almost mastermind coded. Like, it was really, really good. I loved the ending. The middle was kind of slow. I was like, why do I care about this? But then I guess it wrapped up and it was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I really liked that and how it all happened, but getting there was a little slow for me. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Then I read one of my anticipated reads for this year, Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I got the arc of this and I am so excited because I am going to her book signing next week. I cannot wait. This book, if you don't know, takes place in the same world as Chestnut Springs, and it follows Willa from Heartless, the second book in the Chestnut Springs series, brother. I was so excited as soon as I heard that. And also, can we just talk about the cover? It is perfect. It is beautiful. The pink is everything. Like I said, it's about Willa's brother who was a billionaire. He started, I think, like this music streaming app, and also he's starting like this music producer. Like, he's in the music world and he's, I think, named on Forbes like hottest billionaire or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the term is, but that's kind of where you meet Ford and like what he's about. And then you meet Rosie. She comes back to her hometown, which Ford is her brother's best friend. So she comes back. Ford hasn't seen her in a while because she had her life in the city, but now she's back in the small town trying to kind of figure out where she wants to go now with her life. So he ends up hiring her to work under him while she's there for the time being. And there's also another element to this, which is on the summary of the book, but I didn't really read it too in depth, so it kind of was a surprise to me, so I'm not going to say it. But that one little element that Elsie added to this book really showed more of Ford, and I feel like really gave more depth to him, and I loved it. It gave a comedic effect to it. Like, it was just done so well. I loved this one little part of the book that was included. I feel like it gave so much more to the story than just like a romance, and I love the way that Elsie Silver can do not just like a romance between the two main characters and having great chemistry, great banter, and a great relationship, but she can also do like a family dynamic so well. Like, not just Rosie's brother, but also the other element that I'm talking about and their parents and everything. Like, everything like really just comes together, like Ford's sister Willa and everything. Like, it's just, I love the way she can do a family dynamic in a book. I think I gave this one 4 stars or 4.25. I don't really remember, but I really ended up loving these two characters. In the beginning, it was kind of hard for me to connect to these two. I don't know what it was. I didn't like absolutely love them right off the bat, but as the book was going, all of a sudden, like, Ford would say some things, like their banter is very witty, is very like smooth, and then Ford would like throw something in that was kind of serious. It was like, ooh, I kind of liked that and I ate it up. I ended up absolutely loving them. I think they were like totally meant to be. I ate up everything that they said to each other. Like the storyline was so amazing. I think the way that it was paced was done really well. Like I loved it. Like I really did. And I cannot wait for the next book in this series. Like I am so excited. I love Elsie Silver's writing. She's just one of my favorite authors. The last book that I read in March was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I've seen this one also recently. Highly rated, highly loved. And I was really excited to read this because I feel like this is like different than other books that I read. Like I don't reach out for this genre. And I looked it up because I couldn't really figure out what genre this was. But what I saw when I googled it was that it was like a fantasy fiction or like a literary fantasy fiction. Like it has elements of that, but it truly is just like, it feels like a fiction story. I don't really know exactly. We have our main character Lucy, who she is a teacher's aide. She tutors this young boy Christopher after school, and Christopher is in the foster system, but he's kind of overlooked, and Lucy really just wants to adopt him. Like that's all she wants to do is to take him in, foster him, adopt him, but she can't do that because she doesn't have enough money. Like it's very hard for her to do so. So they have that hardship kind of going between them, but she just like loves Christopher so much. And then the other side of this is that Lucy's favorite book series called The Clockwork, I think it's called the Clock Island series. It's a childhood series and she read it when she was younger and she kind of found comfort and all of that within this series. But now obviously she's older now, she's not a child, but Jack sends out an invitation and is writing one last book in the series. He hasn't written in years, like has not published anything, and he's writing the last book, and it's kind of like almost like Knives Out. Like they're all sent to the island and they have to play his games, almost like riddles in games, and whoever wins can get that book, and you can do whatever you want with it. You can sell it to a publisher, you can whatever you want to do, basically you win that book. So Lucy is sent to the island. She's one of the people that get to go play the games, and what I really liked is that you had that element of entertainment of the games and the riddles and all of that, but it was also so heartwarming throughout the whole entire book. The whole time reading this, the relationship between Lucy and Christopher, or Jack and another side character Hugo, or Lucy and Hugo, or Jack and Lucy, or all these characters like between each other were just so like heartwarming, and like they had such like depth to them that made you like feel for them. But then also you have like this element of the Clock Island game and all of this, like everything like together was just done so wonderfully and so, I don't know, like it was so good. And this book is not like realistic in any way, but it is really fun, and I think it has like deeper things within the storyline that was really good and done like so well. It's also short and sweet, like you kind of just get to the point, and the ending of it, like I didn't realize how connected I was to the characters in the story until I got to the end of it, and I'm like tearing up. Like I binged the last like 100 something pages. Like I just really enjoyed this book. I would recommend this to anyone if you want like heartwarming, like yeah, that's like the best word to describe this book, just heartwarming. I gave this one I think 4.25. I didn't absolutely love it, like not one of my favorite books. I did really have a great time reading it. I think the beginning of it was kind of slow to get into, but again, once I connected to them, which I didn't even realize I did, I really enjoyed this book. All right, so those are all of the books that I read in the month of March. Let me know if you've read any of these books, your thoughts on any of them. I feel like I had a pretty good reading month. I had some pretty good books, some like mid books, no books that I'm like obsessed with this month, but I feel like it was definitely a good reading month. So again, let me know if you read any of these books, any of your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I will see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!